the customer said to me, this is our biggest concern, right? Because everything that the customer is going to for that general purpose LLM, we want to be the destination. That is what we want. Like the questions that they're asking there is the data that we want. And so how do we become the destination?
Welcome to the table, steam on the glass. Market moves fast, but we talk it out. From carts to clicks, from mass to scale, every trend that breaks, we pull it apart. Morning in the feed, ideas in the cup. Old rules shaking, new ways showing up. Coffee and commerce, Caleb and Kayla, keep it moving. Coffee and commerce, from first sip to future, we're brewing.
Welcome back to Coffee and Commerce, Kayla. It's always good to see you. You've been busy, but also the market's been busy. Tell me
Yeah.
what's up.
Yeah. So we just had Prime Week. It's no longer just 2 days, it's 4 days. And,
Wait, hold on. Are you telling me that every day isn't Prime Day? Because that's what it looks like in my house.
unfortunately, every day is not Prime Day, but
Okay, all right, fair enough.
although I won't blow it for your wife. So, but yeah, so Prime Week just ended. It was June 23rd through the 27th, I believe, or something like that. So Tuesday through Friday, 4 days. Usually it's in July. So they moved it to June this year. We've had it in June before. That was mostly during the COVID era. And they moved it back to July. Now we're back to June. And so, what we usually see during Prime, now we don't measure what's happening on Amazon. We're more looking at the halo effect, right? Because we see Amazon stand up their big event and we see everybody else sort of participate. And what's precipitated over the last few years is instead of participating like during Prime, we see a lot of brands and retailers rolling up sales the week before. So the week before Prime has sort of become a moment for the non-Amazon websites. And this year in the US, sales have been mostly soft this year. But for that Prime week, those 4 days in the week before Prime, so Tuesday through Friday, we saw sales in the US grow 10% year over year over last year. So a big bump up in sales. And when we look at the weeks before and the weeks after, it was single digit growth, 2%, 3%. So 10% growth is a pretty big jump in that context. And we saw modest increases in discounting, but I think shoppers have just been waiting, looking. There's a lot of pent-up demand out there. And so what this sort of signals to me is that these sales moments, these like Prime or Cyber Week, they're going to be big because consumers are waiting for those types of moments, which makes looking forward to holiday really exciting. But, Caleb, I'm curious for you, did you participate in Prime?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
And I agree, more seriously speaking about Prime Day, in addition to all the random things that we always get from Amazon that show up at the house, and I have no clue what they are, but the box is always there. This week, or this past Prime Week, notice that we really stocked up on back to school stuff early.
Yeah.
So water bottles, backpacks, lunch boxes, new school shoes, all of the things that that your kids will need. So
Yeah.
at least for us with a 3-kid household, it was a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah.
In addition to, other things that we've needed throughout, like just refurnishing the new house.
Yeah.
So I would say it was a lot of like back to school stuff, as well as, then I think we also bought like a couple of new Sonos for the house during that week.
Nice.
So there were some other sort of bigger purchases as well.
Yeah. There are some good deals out there for sure. And I feel like it's not like, yeah, the Prime event is over, but now I'm seeing even more discounting happening, a lot more of like clearance on sale type of events. So it feels like there's a lot, especially in apparel, there's a big push to get
100%.
rid of that inventory. So I think, especially for back to school, it's going to be, if you can time it right, there's going to be some good deals to be had. And then if you're like me and you like using like Rakuten and Ibotta, like you can like, I saw some crazy like cashback percentages over Prime. And so I think the pot will be sweetened a bit more. So it's a good time. The summer seems to be a good time to shop if you're in the market.
I think you're right about that. And actually, you reminded me, we did get some new pots and pans for the house, and we got those as well. on during Prime Week. So that was a purchase. And
That's
then
awesome.
I also would agree, especially with just the amount of marketing that's coming to consumers
Yeah.
in consumers' inboxes and their WhatsApp or SMS feeds. It's a lot of, I would say, it's like, here's an extra 20% on sale items, or it is, here's 30% off site wide. Like you're seeing more promotions like that over the summer, to your
Yeah.
point, to get, to clear out excess inventory supplies probably as a result of that pent up demand
Yep.
in order to prepare for the next buying and selling season.
Yeah, definitely. There's gonna be a lot of that happening right now. Well, something that really bothered me this Prime was, and I know Prime, it's supposed to be an online event, but I sometimes need the item like right now. For example, I needed a new tool for the house to do some yard work. The one we had broke. Getting emails from the HOA, like we got to get this tool. So I went to my local store because I saw it on sale online. I was like, oh, this is a great deal. I'm going to go pick it up. I see they have it in stock. And then I get to the register and then they're not offering the online price in store. And like, wow, that was such a bummer. Thankfully, they made it right. But I think it's interesting too how the consumer, and we're seeing this in some of our consumer sentiment data, how the consumer sees the store, the physical store and the digital store, how that mindset is they're one and the same. And, looking forward to, physical retail still takes the majority of retail sales, no matter what time of year it is, even over the holiday. And so I think brands and retailers are going to have to get a lot better at managing those expectations and creating that really seamless experience, especially with sales, because a lot of consumers, if you see it's on sale online, they expect to see it on sale when they get in the store.
Well, of course. And we don't even have this on the agenda to talk about today, but you did come up with some killer content on blending physical and digital storefronts, which I 100% agree. Like unified commerce, that is the reason why you do it, the reason why you have pricing transparency, inventory transparency, the ability to reserve in one channel and pick up at another channel, all of the things that make unified commerce successful because
Yeah.
of that blending. But was there anything interesting in the research as you were putting that content together that you were either validated your perspective or was maybe something a bit more nuanced that you're like, okay, that actually makes a lot of sense?
Yeah. Well, more on the validating side, 42% of shoppers say that they're researching the products before they go into the store. So doing exactly what I did, right? Like checking to see what the prices are, what's in stock, and then going and actually purchasing it at the store. And you could argue, well, why didn't you buy it online first and then just wait and picked it up? Well, I want to go right now. Or I'm sitting in the parking lot in my car and
Right,
I'm just
right.
checking on my phone. I dropped my kids off
Exactly.
at school. I'm going to go run over and grab it. I don't want to wait for the pickup window in 4 hours when I'm on a meeting or, the middle of my workday. And so that was eye opening and really goes to show that, again, the importance of the unified experience, unifying all of that data and building that journey across all of those touch points and having them be really consistent. But speaking of data, I know we have a really great agenda today. So why don't we get into it, Caleb?
We do. Yeah. So there was some crazy news that came out this past week, especially around AI. And of course, we've seen this massive adoption of large language models. We've seen this massive adoption of harnesses to develop agents using large language models. We've also, though, seen some folks like Alex Karp that recently made mention of the need for data sovereignty and owning your alpha related to large language models. I've actually been having a number of conversations this past week as well, not only about, some of his feedback, which the essentially is like the large language models are using all of your data and like all the third party data, and then also any data that you give to them and building, their capability off of that data. And then also, in some scenarios, coming up with competing products as a result of having access to your data. And so as a result, his take was essentially, don't give all of like your data is your competitive moat, which I would agree. We talked a little bit about that with regard to small language models last week, and he's saying don't give away that data sovereignty to your AI unless you can control the model, you can control the weights and measures. And I think that there is certainly validation to that argument. And so, as we think about, especially now, like the channels are harmonizing, to your point earlier, the brands that customers are buying from, there's greater pressure on them to perform with all of the various alternative options available to customers, especially as they use channels that are somewhat brand commoditized, but are giving them all of the conveniences that they need, like Amazon. And so to that point, brands really need to nail their go-to-market strategy to ensure that consumers are expectations are being met, and they also are still maintaining their competitive moat. But yeah, it's a fascinating topic. I'm curious to get your feedback on it, just, being a data nerd such that you are. What's your take?
Yeah, well, the first thing when all of this was coming out, the first thing that really came to my mind, working with all of this consumer data for the past over a decade now, was how do you maintain data privacy, trust, security, and all of that in this type of environment. And so I think it might have taken a little bit longer to get there, but we're having the conversations now, which I think is good. Data is one of your most important assets in this digital world. And so being able to retain control over that is going to be your biggest competitive advantage. So I see this as a massively important topic. The other component is there a world where small and large language models work together within the organization? And I think that is probably where the conversation is going to go. Because not everything needs to be hidden or kept secure in a small language model. And some things can go to a large language model, and maybe some things should. And so the orchestration and the routing of all of that is going to become really complex and really interesting and probably massive within organizations. And so, that's kind of what I'm thinking of. Like, how do you route how do you route all of these different queries and what goes where, and thinking about like within an organization and the roles that will be needed to support that and answer those questions. Yeah, it's going to be very, very important.
Yeah, I guess we should also like precursor the topic. So Alex Karp is the founder CEO of Palantir. Palantir, of course, is a defense contractor, both for the U.S. and a few select other countries. But Palantir and NVIDIA announced a multi-billion-dollar partnership to essentially build a competing product with all of the large language models today, with the underlying ontology that allows for organizations to be able to maintain their data sovereignty, right? And so in that context, what does it mean for commerce? What does it mean for brands in commerce? Because we're not talking about national defense. We're talking about, brands adopting AI, brands leveraging the best of the data available to them, both publicly and also first party. And so brands need to be able to control how that data is used, to both to their own benefit, but also so that their competitors aren't just using a cleansed version of their data from a macro insights perspective to be able to compete in the exact same way. So brands need to be able to control their data. They need to be, as a result, need to be able to control their AI stack, and then you leverage that and build accordingly, right? Use the power of AI, use the power of agents, build the agents for your experience layer, for your commerce layer, for your post-sales layer. Build the agents to work with your teams so that you can get more productive, so that you can increase your conversion, so that your customers can elevate their experiences and optimize those experiences for the consumer and for your employees, but then do so in a way that you're not giving away your alpha, as Alex Karp says, by using an ontology that allows for you to be able to control the weights and measures in which your data is influenced by and influences the data that they interact with from large language models. So, like, what does that mean, from an agent force commerce perspective? That's really why, we acquired Simulate. That's why the small language model, to your point earlier, is becoming that much more valuable to brands, because it does act as that data sovereignty competitive moat, if you will, a method in which brands can then leverage to interact with large language models through the ingestion of simulated data based on select inputs that the small language model gives it. And so then, to that point, then you can take the insights and then the corresponding actions with either through manual intervention or autonomously through agents, and go and influence key areas within the consumer experience, whether that be personal shopper, whether that be product discovery, whether that be honestly experience optimization. I was chatting with a partner earlier today even, and just some of the stuff that they are building out for agentic experience optimization. You've heard it here first. I think that's going to be the next wave within commerce, AXO, and the things that you can do to autonomously optimize the customer experience through A/B testing, through reporting, not just like delivering the goods, but then being able to autonomously update or optimize the experience as a result of the insights generated from that reporting. Not only being able to access session replay data, but then optimize the experience based on replaying those sessions that the customer has. So there's this whole world in which brands can do so much more than what they used to be able to do in such a shorter period of time. So the time is compressing, but then also well, how do you make sure that your data is also your own? How do you make sure that your data is then not being leaked into large language models and then being used to your disadvantage? And even if you're using it in an incremental way to your own advantage. I'm curious to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, leaked or even monetized, right?
Yeah, or that. Exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've had the almost exact same conversation with a customer, a very large customer, and I was showing them some of our latest research on why shoppers would choose a general purpose LLM versus going to a brand owned agent on their, brand owned property, like their website or their mobile app. And so it was a Venn diagram. And so for the general purpose LLM, like the third party agent, the reasons why they would go were to generate creative gift ideas, to compare products, to get pricing comparisons, look for coupons, technical information. And then for the brand side agent, it was like resolve customer service issues, loyalty management, process returns. And then in the middle, of the Venn diagram where there was pretty much parity, it was like inventory lookups, something else. I can't remember the second one. And
Order
so the
lookups?
maybe it might have been that, something like inventory and order management. And so the customer said to me, this is our biggest concern, right? Because everything that the customer is going to for that general purpose LLM, we want to be the destination. That is what we want. Like the questions that they're asking there is the data that we want. And so how do we become the destination? And, part of the answer to that is the experience agent, right? Like having that really amazing experience shopper agent journey where it's a conversation, it's guided shopping, it's something that, using all of the rich product data that you have and all the data across your organization, right? Reviews, FAQs, data sheets, all of that to create a really cool buying journey and on your brand owned channels. And so the risk in using LLMs in that regard is that you are giving away or potentially sharing that data back and giving away the uniqueness of your brand experience. And that, I think, it's not something I've heard a ton of brands talking about right now, but I think that as this becomes even more mainstream in the shopping journey, it's going to start to really bubble up. How do we become the destination so that, okay, if I'm in the market for a new pair of running shoes, they're coming to my site as the destination.
Agreed. And, we talked about Amazon and Prime Day at the beginning of this, Rufus, which of course got rebranded as Alexa Shopping. I don't know if you've used Alexa in that capacity before or recently, but it's quite a good experience. Speaking of backpacks, that was, one of the experiences that we did. Of course, my daughter she's 9 going on 19. She's putting on these press-on nails. I'm like, what are you doing?
It starts fast.
You're right. You're right about that. And so, but she was asking for like a specific backpack. And I'm like, oh, this is a cool color. And she's like, no, Dad. And I'm like, what do you mean? You will love this color last year. And she's like, oh, that's so last year. I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. So anyway, she picked a different color, but like the Alexa shopping experience going back to, and I swear there's always a point to these stories. Who knows if I actually get to them, but going back to the Alexa shopping experience, it allowed me to be able to compare different brands, different backpacks, the not only the sizes and dimensions of the backpacks to make sure that it would fit a third grader, but then also the colors, the corresponding colors, what general price point, so on and so forth. And then I was able to give her options. We're just sitting outside hanging out and show her in real time, like, okay, here's your North Face backpack, which Salesforce customer. Here's, your other brand backpack. Here's your other brand backpack. Which one, makes sense? Which one do you like? They're all about the same size. And she picked the North Face backpack. And I was like, all right, cool. I can live with that. Right. And so but we used Alexa shopping to be able to do that. But going back to your point, like, are you going to do that on the North Face, or are you going to do that on Amazon's Alexa shopping? And I would argue the answer is both.
Yeah,
right.
probably.
And brands need to be able to offer similar experiences both on the North Face and on Alexa shopping.
Yeah.
Now the
Well,
product selection on the North Face offer a whole bunch of stuff, right? Fantastic. You can offer amazing, like just all of the hot bags. And then on Amazon, all of the the more like inventory volume movers, and the colorways that are most consistently adopted, and maybe less so the more nuanced colorways. And so you can have strategies, of course, for each channel, but also, like, we as consumers are getting retrained to use shopping agents.
absolutely.
And so if you don't have one, you should have one, because as soon as consumers change their buying behaviors and you're not accommodating that, I mean, I'm not saying you're going to get left behind, but in some ways, consumers will change their buying behavior based on the best experience that they have.
Yeah, well, in our research just this past May, 15% of shoppers say that an LLM, whether it's a general purpose LLM, an AI agent, or sorry, a social agent, or a brand-owned agent, 15% of shoppers are going there first at the beginning of their buying experience before anywhere else. And last May, it was only 5% of shoppers were doing that, and it was heavily skewed to Gen Z. And so that's a pretty massive increase in just a year in adoption. And so when we think about, like, what is that number going to look like next May? I mean, in theory, it's going to be, maybe 30%. We talk all the time with customers, right, about, what do I do first, or what do I prioritize? Should it be, the LLM discovery, right? Like making my site discoverable to LLMs? Should it be the brand-owned agent? And to your point, Caleb, about you have to continue the journey on your own brand channels. That is so important, because if you think about it, before pre-LLMs, shoppers used Google search or whatever search service provider to start their journey. 35-40% of e-commerce traffic is still search, or was traditional search. If they got to your website and they couldn't find a search bar, that's a pretty bad experience, right? Like, they come to your site, they're going to do another search once they get to your site. And so same logic applies here. They might
Totally.
start the journey in a chat with ChatGPT, but once they get to your site, they're going to have more questions, and they're going to want to dig deeper. And so you have to continue that journey.
I love that analogy, and you're bang on, just with the harmonization of experiences. And I didn't think of it that way, but you're absolutely right. It's very similar to how our consumer behavior changed as a result of search engines.
Yep.
Search boxes became a staple on commerce websites. Very similarly, as we are changing the behavior either through a chat interface on large language models, or through chat or a shopping interface on aggregated channels like Amazon, brands need to be able to offer similar experiences to that changing consumer behavior. One example that I really like is, because we also have one locally here in Ohio, which is a Boot Barn. And I think I've used this example in the past, but my daughter is, she's very dramatic, if you didn't already know. So she's in she takes creative writing classes, she's in theater, she does ballet, and so she had like a performance coming up where she also takes singing classes, and she wanted to be like have a specific theme to what she was singing, and so she needed cowgirl boots.
Yeah.
And so we used the shopper agent on Boot Barn
Yeah.
and found the specific boots that she liked, that she wanted, and were able to go through the whole process, place the order online, and then we went to our local Boot Barn and picked up the order, which of course then it was an opportunity for her to find something else. So I think she ended up finding a hat, like a cowgirl hat or something. But it was like it was a fun experience. But that to your point around Gen Z, consumer behavior is changing dramatically. And
Yeah.
whatever the discovery surface area is and what that looks like, brands have to think about that and how they are creating their brand interactions in harmony with the other surface areas in which consumers are exploring.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be very interesting. And then, to your point about Gen Z, but our children are Gen Alpha, right? And so when we look to the next upcoming generation of consumers, they're going to be native AI users. Maybe Gen Z was native mobile users, maybe native social users, but these consumers are going to be native AI users. And, for better or for
100%.
worse, these tools are being, introduced to them in school. And so they are going to just naturally already be in these channels and be thinking in these terms in ways that maybe we are not. And so how they are going to experience, or prefer to experience, a buying journey is going to be so different than Gen Z and definitely from millennials. When I think about like my kids, they had an Alexa at their school when they were younger, and like we don't have an Alexa in our house, but I remember them going around the house yelling, hey Alexa, what's the weather today? And like the fact that they're just like, that was such an ingrained, like they didn't think anything of that. It's just so fascinating to me.
Totally. My daughter, because also she's a great salesperson, she negotiates for everything.
Mm.
And so she negotiates chores for time on ChatGPT because then
Wow.
she takes pictures of her different ballet moves and she's not in point shoes yet. And so but that's a desire of hers to get into point shoes. And so she's like, she does the move and then, or the, whatever you call it, like, don't judge. And then but then she like takes it, reimagines it and puts point shoes on. Right.
That's
And
cute.
so it's already ingrained in
Yep.
their behavior, whether it's
Totally.
voice or it's discovery or it's imagination. They're finding, a plethora of different ways of infusing AI into the day-to-day experience. No matter how much you control it, because you're absolutely right. Like our kids, they don't get their iPads unless it's on airplanes or long car rides. But she still is like negotiating, like, okay, if I do these 5 chores, can I have 15 minutes of time on ChatGPT? Like,
That's
all
incredible.
right,
We're not
sure. If that's what gets you to do the 5
the
chores,
chores.
great. Let's do it.
My son's is the Nintendo Switch. He'll do the chore for 15 minutes on the Switch, which is the bane of my existence. But you're right, at least he does the chore. But right now my kids are negotiating
But
for a hamster, so that's been
well,
fun.
I was gonna say Nintendo is a great customer Salesforce commerce, so shout out to Nintendo. I
Yes,
cannot do a shout out to a hamster though. So
yeah,
that one's on
whatever
you.
pet. Yeah, we're trying to talk them off the ledge on that, or like maybe a robot. No, I'm just kidding. But
Yeah,
in
get
the
a robot
same
hamster.
Yeah, robot hamster. In this same vein or similar vein, a lot of talk, something that Alex Karp also talked about was the cost associated with, either continuing to engage with LLMs or building your own small language model. And I think cost and also, I don't know if we want to go down this road, but regulation as well, right? Having an overregulated AI market and how that could actually increase costs. And so the benefit of building your own model is that you are way more in control of the cost and can, when we think about, especially in retail, right, margins are already feeling really tight with all the market pressures, whether it's the increasing return rates, the increasing cost of shipping and logistics, and the supply chain costs that are continue to go up. And so, there's so much opportunity with this technology, but also it adds to the bottom line and
Hmm.
the opportunity here to take the reins on your own model and decrease costs while still being able to accelerate your development of, either the experience or the internal processes. There's a ton of upside to that as well.
I 100% agree. We didn't even get into token maxing, but I think certainly pricing and packaging of AI is a ripe discussion, and I think the answer is continuing to evolve. So maybe we save that one for another episode. But Kayla, as always, it's phenomenal to chat with you. We didn't even chat coffee yet. We just chatted commerce. But
I know. What are you drinking?
I'm drinking. This is actually came from one of our partners.
Oh, I like it.
So very cheeky. This is from Jesse Sage over at the Maze Group, and they're based out of New York. So this is from Brooklyn, but it's Partners Coffee Roasters. Pretty good. I like it.
I like the name of
So
that. Man, I need to
thank
get
you
on
to Jesse.
The Caleb coffee train. Like I'm drinking some iced tea courtesy of our local Costco, which we had to go and pick
Hey,
up and buy ourselves.
I mean, who doesn't love a good Costco trip? My kids do.
It's so funny. My kids love Costco, and even like when they were really little, and now my 2-year-old, it's like so excited to go into Costco. And there's like no frills. It's just a big warehouse, but
Yes,
they love
they
it.
love it. They love it.
And
Yeah,
I mean, I can't lie. I love going into Costco. I always spend way
totally.
more than I plan to spend when
Yeah,
I walk into a Costco. But we have
yeah.
one literally in our neighborhood, so it's very dangerous.
I mean, you guys could probably drive your golf cart.
If we could, if we had a golf cart, but we don't have a golf cart.
That'd
I
be
could do it.
that'd be a heck of a haul in your golf cart if you had a golf cart.
There are people that do that. You see them and they've got like a thing, like a shelf on the back of the golf cart, and it's all piled high. I'm like, it's
My
120
God.
degrees outside. All that's going to spoil.
Right, right. Next thing you know, they'll be carting around coolers for their Costco hauls.
It's wild. Yeah. But
Awesome. Kayla, thank you so much. It's so good to get back at it with you. I know that we had a week where we missed each other both for July 4th and also travel, but yeah, it's always good to chat with you.
yeah, it's great as always, Caleb. Looking forward to next time.
Likewise. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Okay, let's pause.